The small-town church was bathed in the soft glow of morning sunlight streaming through stained glass windows, scattering colors across the worn wooden pews. The air was still, broken only by the gentle murmur of prayers and the occasional creak of the floorboards. In the very front row, a little girl named Emily knelt, her small hands tightly clasped, eyes shut as if she were holding on to something far too big for her young heart. Her lips moved in a whisper, so quiet it was almost swallowed by the stillness around her. "God," she breathed, "I just want a dad for mommy, please." She didn't ask for toys, clothes, or anything for herself, just that one simple, impossible thing. A few pews away, a man in an expensive navy suit sat motionless. Michael, a man who had built his life on wealth but had long since lost touch with anything deeper, had come here by accident. He had been on a long, aimless drive and, seeking a moment of peace, had stepped into the nearest church. But now, peace was the last thing on his mind. Her words struck something in him, like a stone thrown into a still pond, sending ripples through memories he thought he'd buried. He found himself staring at the little girl, wondering about the story behind her prayer, the pain behind her hope. In that quiet church, surrounded by strangers, Michael realized he couldn't just walk away. Something had shifted, and he didn't yet understand why. When the service ended, Michael lingered in his seat, watching as the little girl darted down the aisle toward a woman waiting near the door. She was tall, with soft features and a warm but weary smile. Her dress was simple, its hem frayed, and her hair was pulled back loosely as if she hadn't had time to care for herself that morning. This was Grace, Emily's mother. Michael noticed the way her shoulders carried a quiet heaviness, the kind that comes from years of holding everything together alone. She knelt to hug Emily, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face, and in that moment, her love was undeniable, but so was her exhaustion. As Michael moved toward the exit, he overheard gentle murmurs from nearby churchgoers. They spoke of Grace's life with a mix of admiration and sympathy. She worked 2 jobs, they said, cleaning offices by night and serving at a small diner by day. Her husband had died in an accident years ago, and since then, she'd been raising Emily on her own. She never complained, never asked for help, yet somehow managed to bring food to sick neighbors, bake pies for community events, and volunteer at the shelter. Michael felt a strange ache in his chest. He had known wealth, comfort, and influence, but he also knew what it was to grow up without a father's presence. Watching Grace and Emily together, he felt something he couldn't quite name. It wasn't pity, it was the pull of a story he suddenly wanted to be part of. The next morning, Michael found himself driving back toward the little church, unsure why he couldn't let the moment go. He told himself it was curiosity, but deep down, he knew it was more than that. Inside, he found the pastor sweeping near the altar and struck up a casual conversation. With quiet discretion, Michael asked about Grace and Emily, framing it as simple concern for a fellow parishioner. The pastor's expression softened, as though speaking about someone truly special. He shared how Grace had faced loss with dignity, never letting hardship harden her spirit. Even with little for herself, she found ways to give, dropping off homemade pies for elderly neighbors, helping strangers in need, and always volunteering when the church called. Michael listened, and each detail felt like a thread pulling him closer. He imagined her long nights after working both jobs, the exhaustion of balancing bills and a growing child's needs, the loneliness that came when the house grew quiet. Yet there was no trace of bitterness in how people described her, only respect and admiration. He realized he wanted to know her, not as the millionaire who gives charity, but as someone who could understand and share in her life. That afternoon, instead of returning to his city, he stopped by the small hardware store in town and bought a few supplies. His plan was simple: find a way to cross paths naturally. He decided to meet them as Mike, an ordinary man passing through, hoping she wouldn't see the fortune behind his smile. Over the following weeks, Michael, now just Mike to Grace and Emily, became a familiar figure in their lives. It started small, fixing a squeaky door at their home, replacing a leaky faucet, offering to carry groceries when he spotted them walking from the store. Grace was cautious at first, polite but reserved, as though she'd learned to be careful with kindness. But Emily warmed to him almost instantly, greeting him with excited waves whenever she saw his truck pull up. Michael found himself staying longer each time, sharing coffee at the kitchen table, listening to Emily chatter about school, laughing with Grace over small-town quirks. One rainy evening, after helping repair a broken window, Michael stayed for dinner. The three of them sat in the warm glow of the small dining room, the storm pattering gently against the roof. After the meal, Grace washed dishes while Michael dried them. Emily, sitting on the counter with her feet swinging, looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. "Mike," she asked softly, "do you think God heard my prayer?" The words froze him. He didn't need to ask which prayer, he remembered it exactly. For a moment, he couldn't speak, feeling the weight of her trust, her hope, and the way it stirred something deep inside him. He managed a gentle smile. "I think he did," he said quietly, though the truth was dawning on him even as he spoke. In that moment, Michael began to wonder if perhaps he was the answer she had been waiting for all along. Christmas Eve arrived with the town wrapped in a soft blanket of snow, the church bells ringing faintly in the distance. Michael stood on Grace's porch, his breath visible in the cold night air, heart pounding in a way it hadn't in years. Inside, the small home glowed with warmth, Emily decorating a tiny tree with paper ornaments, Grace humming softly in the kitchen. Michael stepped in, carrying a box, but this time, he wasn't just bringing tools or groceries. After dinner, he asked them both to sit. Emily climbed into her mother's lap, her curious eyes fixed on him. Michael took a deep breath, his voice steady but filled with emotion. He told them his real name, Michael Harrison, and explained that he wasn't just a traveler passing through. He shared the truth about his life, his work, and yes, his wealth. But then he leaned forward, making sure they understood what mattered most. "I'm not here because of what I have. I'm here because of what I've found, with you." Grace was stunned, her eyes glistening. Emily looked between them, smiling without fully grasping the weight of the moment. Then Michael reached for Grace's hand. "I don't just want to help you," he said quietly. "I want to be part of your lives, if you'll let me." Tears slipped down Grace's cheeks as she nodded, and Emily threw her arms around him. Outside, the bells rang louder, and in that small home, Michael realized he had found something money could never buy: family.